We were not the family he loved. We were the family he hid. There are houses that are quiet because they are peaceful, and then there are houses that are quiet because something is wrong. Ours was the second kind. I grew up in the kind of town where the summers smelled like cut grass and gasoline, and the winters felt like the sky was holding its breath. On our street, mailboxes leaned a little, porches creaked a little, and everyone waved whether they knew you or not. People think small towns are honest. They're not. They're just quiet. And quiet hides things well. My mother kept our home tidy in the way you do, when the only things you can control are the things you can touch: clean counters, folded towels, a candle lit in the kitchen, even when no one was coming over. She moved like a person carrying a tray of water, careful not to spill the little piece she had left. My father wasn't cruel. That would have been easier. Cruelty is loud. You can point at it, name it, fight it. He was a long, heavy silence that pulled the air out of rooms and left you guessing which part of yourself you should shrink next to keep the peace. He left before sunrise and returned after I fell asleep, like the sun and the moon agreed to keep us from each other. When I was little, I left drawings for him on the table, a house with 3 stick figures and a crooked heart hovering above it. In the mornings, the paper would be where I left it, a glass ring pressed into the corner, as if his coffee had seen it even if he hadn't. We were not the family he loved. We were the family he hid. There are houses that are quiet because they are peaceful, and then there are houses that are quiet because something is wrong. Ours was the second kind. I grew up in the kind of town where the summers smelled like cut grass and gasoline, and the winters felt like the sky was holding its breath. On our street, mailboxes leaned a little, porches creaked a little, and everyone waved whether they knew you or not. People think small towns are honest. They're not. They're just quiet. And quiet hides things well. My mother kept our home tidy in the way you do, when the only things you can control are the things you can touch: clean counters, folded towels, a candle lit in the kitchen, even when no one was coming over. She moved like a person carrying a tray of water, careful not to spill the little piece she had left. My father wasn't cruel. That would have been easier. Cruelty is loud. You can point at it, name it, fight it. He was a long, heavy silence that pulled the air out of rooms and left you guessing which part of yourself you should shrink next to keep the peace. He left before sunrise and returned after I fell asleep, like the sun and the moon agreed to keep us from each other. When I was little, I left drawings for him on the table, a house with 3 stick figures and a crooked heart hovering above it. In the mornings, the paper would be where I left it, a glass ring pressed into the corner, as if his coffee had seen it even if he hadn't. We were not the family he loved. We were the family he hid. There are houses that are quiet because they are peaceful, and then there are houses that are quiet because something is wrong. Ours was the second kind. I grew up in the kind of town where the summers smelled like cut grass and gasoline, and the winters felt like the sky was holding its breath. On our street, mailboxes leaned a little, porches creaked a little, and everyone waved whether they knew you or not. People think small towns are honest. They're not. They're just quiet. And quiet hides things well. My mother kept our home tidy in the way you do, when the only things you can control are the things you can touch: clean counters, folded towels, a candle lit in the kitchen, even when no one was coming over. She moved like a person carrying a tray of water, careful not to spill the little piece she had left. My father wasn't cruel. That would have been easier. Cruelty is loud. You can point at it, name it, fight it. He was a long, heavy silence that pulled the air out of rooms and left you guessing which part of yourself you should shrink next to keep the peace. He left before sunrise and returned after I fell asleep, like the sun and the moon agreed to keep us from each other. When I was little, I left drawings for him on the table, a house with 3 stick figures and a crooked heart hovering above it. In the mornings, the paper would be where I left it, a glass ring pressed into the corner, as if his coffee had seen it even if he hadn't. I remember the fall I got sick and missed picture day. He signed the school form without looking up. Mom tucked me in and pressed her cool hand to my forehead, counting seconds between breaths, like she could steady me by keeping time. I watched the door, hoping he'd do the thing dads do in movies, sit at the edge of the bed, tell a story about when he was my age, promise to stay until I fell asleep. He didn't. The hallway swallowed him the way it always did. But sometimes love leaves fingerprints anyway. On the good days, he brought home a box of donuts and left it on the counter. He didn't say, "I thought of you." He didn't need to. I ate the powdered one slowly, licking sugar from my fingers like it could sweeten the quiet. You can survive a lot on small kindnesses and long silences until the silences learn to ask questions you can't stop hearing. The grocery store happened on a Saturday that started soft. We counted coupons. Mom teased me for picking the expensive cereal with the cartoon mascot and said, "Okay, but then we get the cheaper pasta." We built tiny bargains to make the day sit right. In the bakery aisle, the air was warm with sugar. I said something that made her laugh, a real laugh, round and alive, like it could float. And then the world tilted. He stood by the cakes holding a sample cup and a smile I hadn't seen in years, the kind that unfolds a person's face from the inside. A woman was there, leaning into his hand like she knew where it belonged. A boy, a little older than me, with his jaw. A girl, younger, with his eyes, laughing up at him like the sky had moved closer. They were a picture you don't know you've been missing until you see it in someone else's frame. Ease, familiarity, the way people stand when they've made a life together. He turned and saw me. The smile ran off his face and left everything else behind. He walked toward me like the floor was a story he couldn't step into. "Hey, kid," he said. Not my name. Not anything that suggested I was a person he had once tried to hold carefully. "Kid." The woman came close enough to see the little scar on my chin from when I fell off my bike. Her voice was soft, the kind of soft you use to set a glass down on a table that's already crowded. "We know who you are," she said. "We've always known." The box I was holding slid out of my hands and hit the floor like the sound you hear in your chest when you learn a truth your body already suspected. My mother's fingers tightened on the cart handle until her knuckles went pale, but she didn't chase him with questions. Quiet people don't chase. They gather. She put her hand on my back and moved me toward the exit, and I went because the only thing worse than leaving was staying. The sky outside was a gray that felt personal. In the car, the air was heavy with the smell of paper bags and something I didn't have a name for yet. "How long have you known?" I asked, looking at the profile of her face, the line where her lashes met her cheeks. She swallowed like the question took up space in her throat. "Since before you were born," she said, and the truth didn't arrive. It unfolded, a paper I'd been carrying for years without reading. People think knowing is the hardest part. It's not. It's realizing how long someone you love has been protecting you from knowing. At home, the house was the same, and none of it was. Mom went to her room and sat on the edge of the bed the way people sit in waiting rooms, poised for bad news with nothing to do but breathe. I stood in the doorway and couldn't think of a single thing to fix with my hands. Some aches don't make a mess. They just widen the space between things. He came 3 days later with the particular stillness of a person who has built a life on separate plates and finally ran out of table. The kitchen smelled like coffee the way heartache sometimes smells like ordinary mornings. He sat, folded his hands, unfolded them, and said, "I was young. I made mistakes. I try to take care of both families." I wanted to ask what take care means when care is divided by doors and evenings, when love is rationed like sugar during a war. Instead, I asked, "Did you ever love us?" He didn't look up. Silence can say yes and no at the same time if you let it. "I did what I could," he said eventually, and I understood that some sentences are not bridges, they are exits. Mom stood by the sink with her back to the window and said, as if she were telling him the weather, "You should leave now." He waited for a word to save him and found none. The door closed gently, and that gentleness was the worst of it, the soft thud of final things. Time didn't heal. It taught me choreography, how to carry the ache without dropping it, how to laugh at parties without explaining the space where a story should be. I graduated. I left town. I learned the comfortable loneliness of doing your own dishes at midnight. I worked the kind of jobs that leave your feet sore and your mind humming with other people's conversations. On Sundays, I walked to the park and sat where the light fell through the leaves like it was practicing forgiveness. Sometimes I saw fathers lifting their daughters and spinning them until everything blurred. I watched until the edges stopped hurting. Mrs. Kelso died one winter, and I took the jar of buttons like an inheritance. On bad nights, I sorted them by weight, letting the cool ones roll between my fingers until the world came back into focus. Mom called often with little stories designed to keep me tethered. The neighbor's new dog, a recipe that didn't work, the way the light hit the kitchen floor at 4 in the afternoon. She didn't mention him. I didn't ask. It wasn't a pact. It was an understanding, the kind you reach with someone you love when you've both survived the same storm from different rooms. I dated carefully, like walking on ice. Men told jokes with big hands and promised small things. I learned to measure people by whether they kept small promises. A man once asked why I flinched when he said he'd call, and then didn't. I said, I believe people, and meant it as both confession and prayer. Years later, a letter found me. The envelope carried my name in handwriting that leaned forward like it was hurrying to be forgiven. I held it for a long time before opening it, the way you hold a glass you already know is cracked. He had been sick. He was better now, he thought. He wanted to talk. The word wanted made the room tilt. He had always had wants. He wanted hours from both lives. He wanted the easy parts of each. He wanted the grace of women who learned to fold themselves smaller to fit the room he made. I put the letter in a drawer and cooked dinner like nothing had happened. But at night the sentences walked the apartment. They sat at the edge of my bed and waited. You can ignore a person. It's harder to ignore the version of yourself they ask you to be. He called, and his voice carried the drag of years spent not saying certain names. I'd like to see you, he said. There was a little cough in the middle of the sentence like the words didn't fit. I imagined him practicing before dialing. I imagined him hoping I would help him be the man he told himself he was. I met him in a diner off the highway, a place where coffee tasted like decisions, and the waitress called everyone honey with a voice like gravel and sugar. He looked older in a way that wasn't only years. He looked like a person rearranged by the truth finally catching up. You look like your mother, he said, and I thought, that's the first honest thing you've given me. He spoke in careful paragraphs. He explained the weather of his life, the systems he navigated, the corners he turned. He started sentences with, I thought and I never meant, and each one set a small glass on the table between us. I sipped water and let him build his arrangement. When he finished, the table was crowded, and I was still thirsty. Do you want forgiveness? I asked not unkindly. He blinked like I'd moved the furniture in a dark room. I want a relationship, he said. The word sat there, too big for the space. I looked at his hands, at the wedding ring tan line that told a story he hadn't. I thought of the boy and the girl in the bakery aisle and wondered if they ever stood in this same diner, if they sorted his sentences the way I was sorting them now. I thought of my mother pressing hems under a lamp and how her hands had learned to make something neat out of what came apart. I can't go back, I said. There isn't a back to go to. He opened his mouth, and I put up a hand the way my mother did that day in the store. I'm not angry like you think, I said. Anger would make you important. He looked like I'd set his glass arrangement sliding. I don't want to punish you. I don't want to fix you. I want to live a life that doesn't need either. The waitress poured more coffee we didn't drink. Outside, traffic braided itself into something complicated and ordinary. He nodded slowly, the way people nod when they're trying to remember a script and finding only silence. So that's it, he asked. I thought of doors and how they sound when they close softly. That's it, I said, and it wasn't cruelty. It was weather, a front moving through, air finding its level. He sent a few letters after that, marked by dates and effort, the handwriting more careful, as if neatness could convince paper to change its meaning. I put them with the first one. Sometimes I held them like you hold a stone you picked up from a beach you won't visit again. They were proof that something happened and that I survived it. Mom visited in spring, and we walked the city like tourists of my own life. We bought flowers we couldn't name and put them in a jar on the table. We didn't say his name, but we left room for it between us like you leave a chair empty at a table out of respect for the dead. I built something that could hold me. Work that made sense. Friends who arrived with soup and stood in my kitchen telling me their terrible stories and laughing anyway. A man who learned my rhythms and didn't try to change them, who asked before touching the scars and then kissed them when I said yes. We painted the small bedroom a color that looked like morning. When the light came through the blinds, it laid thin gold bars across the floor, and I stepped through them like someone free. On certain evenings, I sat by the window the way my mother used to, but I wasn't waiting, I was watching. Watching the way people carry their groceries home, the way fathers lift sleepy children onto shoulders, the way the world keeps telling stories even when you set yours down to rest. If this is forgiveness, it doesn't look like the movies. It looks like choosing a quiet that doesn't hurt. It looks like answering a call and saying gently, "No, not today," until one day the phone stops ringing and the room stays warm. It looks like saying his name out loud and feeling nothing that needs to be fixed. People say closure like it's a door you slam. It's not. Closure is a window you open to let the air move. It's the soft click of a latch. It's learning the difference between leaving and being left, and choosing to be the one who walks toward the life that's calling your name. I didn't lose a father the day I saw him in the bakery aisle. I lost a belief that was killing me quietly. And in that loss, I found something I can live inside, a truth that holds still when I touch it. Family isn't blood. Family is the people who stay when the room empties, the ones who learn your storms and stand on the porch anyway, saying, "I'm here." He didn't stay. He taught me what to look for in the people who do. If you need a final sentence, here it is, simple as a key in a lock. I didn't close the door to hurt him. I closed it to hear myself breathe.